That's what I was talking about when I talk about these limited circumstances where we would want to make sure that we maintain the abilities. But the more general proposition that you're talking about is one that we support.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and I yield back the remainder of my time.
The chair very much appreciates the gentlewoman's brevity and now recognizes the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Chaffetz, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney General. I appreciate you being here. I want to go back and talk about, if we could, about the investigation of General Petraeus, which I understand the FBI started in the sort of May, June timeframe. When did you first learn about the investigation into General Petraeus? Then the FBI, he was then the CIA director.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but some months, I think, or a couple of months after it began. I'm not sure exactly.
The news reports say that that happened sometime in the summer. Would that be a fair, accurate representation?
I think that's probably right.
Do you know when General Petraeus was notified or had any sense that he was under investigation?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know when he was actually made aware of it by, I think, as a result of an FBI interview, I think, but I'm not sure exactly when that happened.
Do you have any idea when he would have become aware of it, other than, I see that somebody's trying to hand you something, so do you have a sense as to when he became aware of it?
This just says we'll look into it and get back to you.
Need notes for that?
I don't know. I just don't know when exactly all these events happened.
You know, one of the questions and the criticisms here of your actions on this is that you knew about this in the summer, and yet when did you notify the Director of the National Intelligence, Mr. Clapper?
I don't remember when that happened. I knew about it for a while before he was notified. I don't know exactly what the time frame was.
And when was the President of the United States notified?
It was much later. Again, I'm not exactly certain, but as I remember, like late fall, perhaps even maybe early winter. That's, again, don't hold me to these exact.
So, and I appreciate that, and I'm asking you dates, but the concern here is that you, for months, based on that timeline, and I recognize it's loose here, but for months, you knew about it, but you didn't notify the President of the United States. Why is that?
Because it was an ongoing criminal investigation.
You don't think that there was any national intelligence lap over? I mean, was there any national intelligence ramification?
Not on the basis of what we were investigating. If we had thought, or if I had thought, that what we were looking at potentially would have been compromising of General Petraeus or would have led to a national security problem or breach, then I.
But why? Look, according to the Congressional Research Service, let me read it from their report in April. While the extramarital affair itself is not classified as an intelligence activity, the investigation by the FBI originated with the possible hacking of Director Petraeus' email account, an act that had the potential of compromising national intelligence. As I've said before, he was not the head of the, Fish and Wildlife. This is the Director of Central Intelligence. Why would you not share that with the President of the United States?
Well, as we talked about it among us that at the FBI and at the Justice Department, we did not think that we had a national security problem or a potential national security.
But why were you investigating? Why would the FBI investigating? It's not just an extramarital affair, right? That doesn't raise to the level of FBI involvement. There certainly had to be some suspicion that there was some national intelligence implication.
Well, the investigation began, as I remember, because of complaints that one party made against another about the use of computers and threats. That's how the investigation.
But when it involves the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Senator Feinstein, who is the chair of intelligence, said, quote, "This is something that could have an effect on national security. I think we should have been told," end quote. Why not notify, under the law, the proper authorities here in the United States Congress, specifically the head of the intelligence committees, and why not notify the President of the United States?
Well, again, as I said, there is a strong tradition and concern within the Justice Department not to reveal, and the FBI, not to reveal ongoing criminal investigations. But I think we were sensitive to the possibility of a national security concern, but did not think that one existed. And if we look back...
But why not share that with the President of the United States? Do you not trust him with that information? I would think that is the one person who should absolutely know about what's going on. And if it was a potential that our director of the CIA had been compromised, that you were investigating something, why not share that with President Obama?
Because, as I said, we do not share ongoing criminal investigations. And if you look back, the conclusions that we reached, in fact, were correct, that we did not have a national...
Is this an ongoing investigation?
It's an ongoing investigation.
Time of the gentleman has expired. Chair thanks the gentleman for the line of questioning and now recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Garcia, for 5 minutes.
Over here, Mr. Attorney General. Mr. Attorney General, thank you for being here and thank you for your time today and thank you for your long and distinguished career. My first question, and I know you've answered some of this, but maybe in a less hostile environment, it will give you an opportunity to dazzle you with your brilliance and your personal knowledge. I, unlike the majority here, know Mr. Tom Perez and have known him for many years and as a dedicated public servant. A few weeks ago, we ascended ourselves and began a confirmation hearing for Mr. Perez here, a duty and a responsibility that was beyond the purview of my office, but nonetheless we participated in that. But I'd like to hear from you as someone who's worked with Mr. Perez closely in his capacity in your office, if you could tell us about him and your view on him as Labor Secretary.
Well, I think he is uniquely qualified for this job, given his experience in Maryland in a similar position, given the way he has distinguished himself over a long and storied public service career, certainly with regard to the way in which he has conducted himself as Assistant Attorney General, showing himself to be concerned about and responsive to working class people. He's a person who I think has the ability to see both sides of an issue. He is not an ideologue, as I think he has been portrayed. He is both a good lawyer, I think a loyal public servant, who I think will distinguish himself if he is given the opportunity to become our next Secretary of Labor.
Thank you, Mr. General. I wanted to ask two more questions. One is on immigration, and thank you for addressing comprehensive immigration reform in your comments. I've noticed as someone who's been around immigration and worked with the Immigration Service that the rules that we've created has sort of bound us in certain circumstances and to some degree has limited the discretion of our immigration judges, which are overworked but sometimes don't have the legal ability or the ability to resolve many cases which seem to be simple. If we could get your opinion on returning some of that discretion to the immigration judges.
No, I agree with you. I served for 5 years as a judge here in Washington, D.C., and we put a great deal of effort into finding good people to serve on our Article III courts, in our immigration courts, and I think that they should have requisite amounts of discretion so that they can decide what justice is in a particular case. What's justice for the person who is in front of them? Obviously, it's constrained by rules, regulations, and by laws. But within that range, I think judges should have discretion, perhaps a greater degree of discretion. Immigration judges should have a greater degree of discretion than they presently have. We do a good job of selecting who these people are, and we should trust, therefore, in their abilities and their ability to use their discretion appropriately.
Let's stay on that real quick, and then I'll close with this and return the balance of my time. I wanted to ask you about the cuts that sequestration has had on immigration, the impact that it's had. I think it's a reduction of about $15 million in funding for immigration review. Could you tell me a little bit about what impact that's had on already overburdened caseloads, and has that led to prolonged detention, which of course adds a further burden to taxpayers?
Yeah, we just have numbers here. There are serious problems with regard to this whole question of sequestration. The immigration docket has gone up every year. The resources that we need to deal with that that rise have to be dealt with, and sequestration runs in the opposite direction, where we are actually taking resources away from a growing problem. If you look at the immigration bill, there is contained within it a provision for an enhanced number, a greater number of immigration judges. The President's budget for 2014 asks for more immigration judges to handle all the problems of this of the growing docket. Sequestration is something that is more than simply people getting on an airplane and getting to their destination, in time. Sequestration has a negative impact in a whole variety of areas that are my responsibility in the immigration courts. With regard to ATF, FBI, DEA agents having the ability to be on the streets and doing the things that the American people expect. We've had problems in 2013. This department has far fewer people than it did in 2011 when we put into place a freeze. This is going to have an impact. You will see, I bet, 2 years from now, 2.5, 3 years from now, lower numbers out of the Justice Department, and some Attorney General perhaps will be criticized for that, and it will be a function not of a lack of desire and dedication on the part of the people of this Justice Department, but simply because there were fewer of them.
Thank you, Mr. General. I yield back the balance of my time.